Of Half Moon Bay City Council meeting for September the 5th, 2023. We are going to be discussing our downtown streetscape master plan project kickoff. And I'll turn it over to Karen.
Thank you.
We could just do a quick roll call, Mayor.
Sure.
Councilmember Brownstone.
Thank you.
Here.
Councilmember Rohrbeck.
Here.
Councilmember Reddick.
Here.
Vice Mayor Jimenez.
Here.
Mayor Penrose.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Karen.
Thank you, Mayor Penrose, and good evening, council members and community. I'm so delighted to be with you here this evening. I'm Karen Decker. I'm Economic and Community Vitality Manager within the City Manager's Office, and the focus of this convening is the Downtown Streetscape Master Plan Project. Thank you. Oh, sure. Yes. The focus of this convening is the Downtown Streetscape Master Plan Project. This special meeting kicks off a series of public meetings where the community will be weighing in on all things downtown. So preservation, enhancement, accessibility, vibrancy, visitor serving, resident serving. And I'm so pleased to introduce you to Cindy Zerger, project manager and urban design lead for Tool Design. And Cindy will be walking us through this program.
Great, thanks so much, Karen, and thanks, council members, for allowing me to be here and engaging with you in this process. As Karen mentioned, this is really kicking off our engagement opportunity, which will really start up in earnest next week. So I'm going to give you a bit of a preview of what we're working on. I know Karen has done that at previous meetings. Just quickly, I'll tell you a little bit about why Tool Design is here, why I'm here, and give you a project recap, and then really want to engage with you. We're going to do this in an online format, so we'll see how it works, and excited to hear from you on what you want to see for the downtown as well. So as Karen mentioned, I think at previous meetings, the firm that I work for, is Tool Design Group, and we went through a competitive bidding process and were selected to continue to work with the City of Half Moon Bay. We're very excited about that and have been working for the last couple of months to prepare for our upcoming charrette, or our design workshop. And with us, we have Opticos Design. They are an urban design and architecture firm that really specialize in the type of work that we're going to be doing. We've worked together on a number of projects across California and excited to bring them into the fold. You'll see them next week. And we also have been working with Yamabe and Horn, who are an engineering firm who have provided engineering services. But I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about Tool Design and why I think we were hired and are here and are so excited to work with you. Tool Design is a collection of planners, urban designers, and landscape architects and engineers who really, I would say, look at streets just a little bit differently. And I think we may be the only transportation firm, public realm firm that has the word joy in its mission statement. In 2003, we have been focused on streetscape design and public realm design since we were founded in 2003, and everything from federal guidance and guidance at the local level to conceptual through final design streetscapes. So I just wanted to highlight a few things up here. The Accessible Shared Streets Design Guidance is very important to my work, thinking about an all ages and all abilities way to navigate our streets and our transportation system. Thinking about populations that have any kind of mobility impairments has been something that's been near and dear to my heart since I really focused my career on streetscapes. And so my job as urban design lead is to really make sure we're centering experience in all of the work that we do and looking at the community context, so really understanding what works for different communities. This is a smattering of the different types of work we've done. Of course, what fits for Half Moon Bay is going to look different, and we need to talk about that, and that's what we're really here to do, to be able to talk about your public realm as the space in which you really expressed your community values. Streets are arguably the largest part of our community's public realm, and they are fundamental to the brand and the experience of a place. So to sum it up simply, this idea of path as place is a philosophy that we bring to all of our work. That streets, yes, they need to provide a transportation function, but we can also design them to be as special as the destinations to which they lead. And I wanted to share with you kind of an example right now of a Main Street project that we did in another community, different context, but similar in terms of it being a destination and its location, had long history there, and talk a little bit about how we stepped through the process with them, which is how we're envisioning how we'll work with you. So this community this is a before and after, but really what I wanted to highlight was we did exactly what we're doing here, which is start out with a really community-based process, convening through discovery and design workshops, heard from the community about what they wanted to see in their downtown and especially on their main street. From that, we developed a vision and conceptual design and design development documentation that really let the community move forward with this idea, work through everything from how the main street will function, how to allocate the space, streetscape palette, furnishings, and then we were actually retained to do final design for them as well. And this is what it looks like. The first phase has now been built, and we continue to work with them on this project. But just an example of exactly what we're hoping to do here, I think one of the other things I want to mention is we love to come up with a great vision, but if it's not implementable, that is not something we want to sign any of us up for. We want to make sure it's very functional and something that the city can implement. And so in terms of final documentation of this effort, which is the visioning phase, it might look something like this. This is, again, from a different community, but we came up with an overall idea of how we will design and allocate the streets, a furnishing palette, including all the materials and hardscape materials like furnishings, lighting, and then the landscape palette, and then came up with ideas about how do we treat those kind of transportation adjacent spaces that also play into how the streets feel. So that was a quick overview of tool design and the type of work we do. And we are so excited to be working on this and know, again, it's going to be very contextual in terms of how we design this and working with the community moving forward. So just a quick overview of what we're here to do is to develop an overall streetscape concept for Main Street and a set of street design guidelines for that street in particular. Of course, we'll be thinking about how all of the downtown functions and the heritage streets in particular. And through the process, thinking about how we might integrate wayfinding, green infrastructure, that all ages and abilities approach, how we might think about additional public space improvements so it all kind of works together. And of course, parking comes up as part of this conversation as well, and we'll be looking at that as well. The timeline, very high level timeline here, just showing you that we're at the beginning, we're really at the early phase, so I'm here with you at City Council at this early stage of the green graphic here that you see. We'll be coming up to the 3-day discovery workshop next week, and this will be about a year-long process in working with you to come up with the final streetscape master plan. I'm not going to read through this whole graphic, but this is what next week looks like for us. We're really excited to be coming down on Monday evening and convening groups. If you just do a squint test and you see all the blue, those are all opportunities we'll be meeting with either stakeholders who have been invited in, or the studio, the space that we will be working in, is open to the public to come on in and have a conversation with us. So a lot of great opportunities and touch points throughout the week, or the 3 days in particular. I want to highlight, of course, there's a city web page that is listed here, and that's going to be the one-stop shop for all kind of information online. So that was a lot and quite quickly, but before we jump into hearing from you, that's what we're here to do, is really hear from you about the downtown. I wanted to pause for any clarifying questions.
I have one, and wayfinding means signage, that kind of thing?
That's right.
Thank you.
Yep.
Are you aware of I think it was the San Luis Obispo design that we paid for a few years ago? I think there's a lot to learn from that.
Absolutely, great question. That is part of what we've been reviewing. We've been doing a little bit of existing conditions and understanding what has been done in the past, and we will be taking some of that great work into consideration. There are some really interesting ideas they had there, yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So this is more of a conceptual level question, but living here, for me, it's really important to have a downtown area where I can feel engaged, and interact with my neighbors and, other locals. However, we're a visitor-serving community, and a lot of the traffic and visitation downtown is visitors. how do we balance needs other than making it, auto-centric? How do we, balance the need for human engagement and community and, assembly and culture and all those other things, and de-emphasize the auto? Or can we not do that since we're a visitor-serving community? Are we reaching out at all to, organizations that serve visitors to find out that? And I just think it would be good to find a way to sort of, at least in the core area, de-emphasize cars. Like one of the problems we have right now are, giant vehicles, that are 20 feet long moving into the, the actual travel lane. So how do we balance those visitor and resident sort of interests? And how do we communicate to people that public spaces are still important and worth investing in? Kind of general questions, but what's your approach to that?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of this will come out through, I think, community engagement. I'm sure questions around how do we make this the place for Half Moon Bay residents and visitors alike. I think we often see them as there's a tension there or they're mutually exclusive, but I think if we do it right, we can come up with a scheme that allows for a really wonderful downtown that people want to go to, but they don't want to drive through, right? So we can think about creative ways of how we're addressing the side streets, maybe not on the main street, and think about it kind of comprehensively. I think, as I mentioned earlier, streets are really an expression of a community's values, and I think we'll need to keep that at the heart of this. And therefore, when we do, it allows for people who want to come and visit, because they want to come to Half Moon Bay for a reason, for share our values. That's right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For me, it's about, be able to capture our heritage.
Yeah.
Half Moon Bay, the coastal community, is the farming, ranching community of San Mateo County. And for me, it's very important to be able to capture that. I would not want to see, Half Moon Bay move away from that. So how do we capture, the farming of the coast? The fishing, the cattle, I keep, every year, 4th of July parade, I keep hearing after the parade that many people come from over the hill just to see what we have to offer. And one of those things is, the horses. So to be able to capture that, it will be very important, to not to move away from it.
Yeah, I appreciate you mentioning that. I think there's many layers that we have been even uncovering in what we've done so far around existing conditions. When we say that, it's not just about turning movements and how many people are walking on your streets, but thinking about unpacking that rich history. And I think we'll plan on thinking through how can we express that through design interventions, the materials we choose, how can they be authentic to some of that history. So I'm excited to learn more about that.
Well, one more comment. For a few years already, down in Main Street, we have structures of bicycles. Mm-hmm. And I actually have gone around, Main Street. I went to Feed and Fuel. I went to other businesses on Main Street about an idea of getting those same images about horses. Mm-hmm. Being, Half Moon Bay, a part of our heritage. Yes, and and I asked, can we actually find frames, this was at Woodside, right? The close to 280, there's two structures. It's a mare and the baby in the fall. So, but that's, Woodside also celebrates, horses. Mm-hmm. So how do we capture that in Half Moon Bay? Hopefully we can see that in having that downtown. People have brought up ideas about, maybe horse ties on, Main Street, in the areas, and people say, yeah, I'll put one in front of my business. Mm-hmm. Right? Every weekend, actually during the summer, you see a lot of caballeros, a lot of horsemen, horse people, riding horses around town. And I see, people taking pictures, video. So to be able to capture that, I think it's very important. For me especially, it's very important.
I think we need to limit ourselves right now to clarifying questions. So if there are any other clarifying questions from council? No, I have one, and that is public comment. Is that restricted to that week of September the 11th, 12th, and 13th?
That's a great question. No, we will have other opportunities to engage with the public. That's the beginning. And that's where we have open studio where people can come in. We'll have a public meeting at the IDES Center as well. So that'll just kick it off. And then we'll be back in October for a second design week. There'll be more opportunities to engage there. And then we'll talk with Karen and the team about supplementing and thinking about future engagement activities to have people weigh in on the concepts and how we've developed them.
I think that's going to be critical. When we talk about community stakeholders, stakeholders are the general public.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now we're going to turn it over to public comment.
I have no public comments, Mayor. Oh, we do have one.
Hello, I'm Margaret Gossett. I am a planning commissioner, and unfortunately, I'm not going to be here next week, and I'm so glad you're going to be here in October, because then I have other opportunities to offer a little input. I'm really excited that you guys are working on this, and I just wanted to offer just a little bit of input. Since you're at the infancy stage, there's a town in Florida called Seaside, Florida. I think you may know of them. They've done a lot of studies and came up with a solution for their town. And the interesting thing about Seaside, Florida is they serve visitors and they also serve residents. And they had the same issue that we have with parking congestion. And on the coast side in Half Moon Bay, we do have parking that's right now vacant, and it's actually oceanside, although the city of Half Moon Bay doesn't own it. I don't know if there's opportunities to work with other property owners or landowners that have parking available where you might be able to offer shuttle services for visitors. And it's right at the beach. So it's actually state park parking. There's a parking lot that's closed probably, I don't know, 320 days a year, and there's maybe 150 parking spots there. So, and the nice thing is it's right next to the beach. I know there's issues with that site. It doesn't have a public bathroom per se today, but those are issues, infrastructure things that can be improved upon. And then I wanted to echo what Debbie Ruddick had said about the long vehicles that are now parking at angled parking on our main street, and sometimes they're right, the tail is right in the middle of the lane, and cars have to swerve into the other lane to avoid, just because there's not enough street side, or I don't know how to say it, but the street isn't wide enough to accommodate these new large vehicles that are parking at angles. And I understand that angled parking provides more parking, but yet is it safe? And given that we do want to serve the general public, we also want it to be safe for everybody. And that's basically all I have in terms of input. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret.
I have no other speakers, Mayor.
Okay. I will turn it back over to you, Cindy.
Okay, great, thanks. So now is when we do want to hear more of these really creative ideas, and we're going to ask it in a series of 3 questions. So I'm going to flash those up on the screen, and then we're going to go to a online whiteboard application where we'll be taking some notes. But the 3 questions we're asking you tonight, and this is what we'll do in the public sessions as well, and in the stakeholder meetings. So what do you like about downtown and want to see retained? What do you dislike and want to see changed? And what is missing that you would like to see created? So those are the 3 questions. We'll go through. I think it'll be great if we can spend 10 minutes on each. So we'll start, and we're going to move over to this whiteboard, while I call it up. Hopefully you can all see it on your monitors. But we have a few great note takers with us tonight who will be doing that as you have comments. But what you can see here is our whiteboard space, and we have a map. We'll bring this in physical form to all of our public stakeholder meetings. We'll have them out on tables, and we'll be asking a lot of the same questions, and we'll be drawing and taking notes here. So I want to orient you to what you're seeing on this map. This north is to the left here. You can see the intersection of Main Street and Highway 1 here. Here's Highway 92 and Main Street all the way through. Sometimes it's hard to orient yourself in a plan graphic, but it's a nice way for us to be able to take notes here and then the main street, goes all the way down over to Highway 1. So that's what the map looks like right now. And I'd love to hear from folks, and we can go around maybe and talk a little bit about what do you like and want to see retained.
Why don't we start with Councilmember Brownstone?
What do I like? Well, I like the flowers that hang from the poles a lot. It's always nice bringing live things into the design. I like the benches. I'd like to see probably more benches for people to sit.
Seating, yeah.
What else? Well, I like that we do have sidewalks. I could see some maybe more flexible spacing. I like the outdoor seating when I see it. I like the flexibility that we have. Sometimes we can just close down streets and make them, turn them into non-car traffic moments. So how can we arrange for traffic in a way that allows for that? Maybe one day, who knows, without making more traffic situations. What do I dislike? No, by the way, I also like that we don't have really any chain stores downtown, and we're preserving a certain look. And it has a nice small town feel to it, which is what I think this community mostly likes.
I think we'll stay with the likes for now, too, so keep going on the likes, and then we'll kind of go around, and then we'll do dislikes later.
Or just stay on the likes, great. What else do I like? I like encouraging some of the stores to have, some of them are a little better at their storefronts, to attract folks or have nice signs. Not gaudy, but I think sometimes, if they can we can offer some coaching for other stores to also have an opportunity to enhance. I'll stop.
All right, thank you.
I like a lot of those things. I like the small town feel. When people tell me from other places that they love our downtown, if they've found our downtown, it's the small town and historical feel. I love the fact that there's a rich history that's obvious there that I think we could enhance further. The Cunya's building and Zabala Square. I like that there's history. I like the fact that we have, City Hall on Main Street. And it's not optimum in terms of, how we govern and the scale and all that kind of stuff, but it's nice that it's there. And we have a local newspaper still, and that's right around the corner. I like that there's residential up against downtown. I actually like a lot of the stores that we have downtown. But I think we're missing, more resident-serving businesses, serving, basic needs, like there's no shoe store, you can't buy underwear, that sort of thing. So I'd like to see the mix of businesses improve. But I like that we don't have chain stores. I like that we have McDuter Park on a major corner, where people can, sit and have lunch and congregate. It's really important for me as we go forward to make sure we have plenty of spaces where people can congregate and assemble and just enjoy each other and interact. I'd like to see more opportunities for engagement with each other, and residents and visitors. I'd like to see wider sidewalks and have, more outdoor eating. And I'd like us to deal with the issue of the parking along Main Street. And more bike-friendly, too. I think, I'd like to see us de-emphasize the vehicle and have more opportunities for multimodal access, including, buses or maybe shuttles, something like that. I like that our businesses seem engaged, and I want to keep them engaged and find more ways for them to engage with us and the community at large. I'd like to see us find ways to connect better to Pilarcitos Creek. We have issues there. There's a trail in part of it, but it's not very usable by the public right now. And there's issues of trash and other issues. I'd like to find ways to make it more of an amenity, I think. I'd like to get more housing downtown. And I'd like to deal with the issue of, vacant ground floor storefronts. I want to make sure that we're as active as possible. I think right now the downtown core is walkable. People seem to come out and just want to walk our sidewalks and look in windows, and I think that's great. So we want to have a good street forward facing, presence, with our businesses. And serve a range of businesses too, not just retail, but, we would like some office, and I know that's a problem right now because people are working, remotely still. But make sure we have a dynamic mix of things going on. So I think we have, the potential there, and, I love that, and I'd like to see us develop it. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. Yeah.
In terms of what I like the trees. I like the parklets. I like the benches. What I'd like to see changed is I'd like more benches. I'd like wider sidewalks. I'd like fewer cars on the streets. I'd like to have a sense that you could walk into each and every shop easily. And right now, some of the shops are forbidden. They're forbidding. So I think that ways to look at entrances to shops is important. I want it to be age-friendly. That's mostly what I'd like to see. I think right now, places like Feed and Fuel are such a great thing to have on Main Street. And so I'd like to encourage more of that kind of shop. Interesting, different things that you don't find in Burlingame or in San Mateo, but that are specific to the industries that service us here. I like City Hall being where it is. I really am excited about the Economic Development Center going to be downtown. I think that's fabulous. Yeah, and I like the idea that we are beginning to encourage residential building on our second stories. I think the new building that's coming up at Main and Kelly is going to be really a good start for us all on looking at how we can do that, how we can get people living above shops on Main Street. Councilmember Joaquin.
Thank you. I like the historic, Main Street. I like the old architecture, buildings like the Zavala Square, Feed and Fuel, San Benito, Cantina Grill. One of the things about the place is when you're downtown in the middle of the day and you go for lunch, they have live music. And I think that's an attraction that, to Half Moon Bay that not a lot of people know. And I believe they're all local artists, that perform at that place. But it's the architecture of the building, that makes a big difference. If you go further south, you have the Benedetti, building that also continues to have the old structure. Right across the street, you have a restaurant that still maintains, the architecture. So there's different buildings, along the way on Main Street, unfortunately, because of the trees that we have, they're not noticeable. So what can we do, so I'd like to see more of the buildings. A few years back, one of my cousins was visiting Half Moon Bay, and he took a picture of Half Moon Bay. And at first, I didn't recognize, the picture. And then I realized it was the Art Fellas, building. So, and one thing that I like is about having plaques, on the walls of different buildings that tells you, or in front of different places around downtown, that tells you a little bit of the history of the place. I like the the McDutra. I love the mural that's on Kelly, right there on Cunha Country Store. So I would like to see more. I like to see more colorful in downtown. The attraction of what's downtown. Again, parking is a big thing. Some of the big vehicles, park. Something to do. Maybe we can do. We'd like to find a better way, for parking for those, for those vehicles, to make it safer for people who ride their bicycles. Now that we have the more signage on the roads, it's to be safe. But I like we preserve, we're preserving those buildings. And any future development on Main Street, I would like to see that. That we go to the old architecture of Half Moon Bay that goes along with the Zapala House, Freedom Fuel, San Benito, the Benedetti building, the Art Fellas, building. So, I would like to see that.
Great, thank you.
Councilmember Rybak.
I've heard a lot that sounds really good about what people like. I like the dog friendliness of Half Moon Bay. I like sitting in front of a coffee shop and watching the dogs and talking to the dogs. I don't know how unique to Half Moon Bay it is, but it's something that it makes me feel good when I'm downtown. I like the fact that we don't have big box stores. I think that's makes our community a lot funkier, and I would encourage these kinds of stores like Feed and Fuel that serve the needs of our community. I like, or I would like, us to improve the crosswalks to make them more distinctly Half Moon Bay. If you've been to Monterey, and on the street near the aquarium, you'll see really interesting designs on the crosswalk that make it uniquely Monterey, and I would like the same thing in the Half Moon Bay. Just in general, I think Main Street is funky now, but could be funkier, and I'm thrilled that we're trying to really improve the streetscape.
Great, thanks. I hear some recurring themes, which is really wonderful. I think we'll continue to hear that through next week as well. And then it's about thinking about how can we translate into that sort of design solutions. I think some people talked a little bit about what dislikes, but I'd love to get a little bit more into that. And feel free, we're talking about all of Main Street. So from the highways all the way through downtown, and so if there's anything, we don't like in sort of the overall feel of that, would love to hear a little bit more about that, and feel that you can get as particular as, I don't like this sidewalk between this street and that street, or I really want to improve this location. So feel free to get pretty specific.
I think maybe I've been thinking incorrectly. I thought we were talking about downtown and the heritage downtown, that we weren't really talking about North Main Street or far south on Main Street.
Actually, yeah, so our study is going to be looking at the entirety of Main Street. So we're going to get into more detail in the downtown area, so the blocks between, from the bridge over to downtown in this heritage Main Street area. We'll get more specific there. But we are talking about, we're zooming out, so I'll zoom out again, just so you get a sense of the overall map that we have from Main Street here at Highway 1 all the way down to...
Yeah, you showed it. I was just surprised. I didn't realize you were doing that whole thing. Okay. Why don't we just go in order again? Councilmember Brownstone. And the question now is what we don't like.
Yes, what do you dislike and want to see changed?
Thank you.
Let's see, what do I dislike? You had in one of the opening pictures you had in one of those towns you designed, I don't know if you remember, there was some really colorful, like plastic type chair, long chairs, not benches, well, sort of benches, and they were really colorful. And it made me think, wow, that particular space in that area, and I'm not talking about all of Half Moon Bay downtown having that, it just felt very family friendly. Like kids, that's the first thing they would love to do, and they're probably movable as well. So I don't think, so what I'd say what I don't like is sometimes I don't see like maybe enough color that makes it that kind of family-friendly attraction in certain spots. And I don't mean amusement park look, but something, and we have a couple of great stakeholder organizations, Coastside Family Taken Action, others that really do focus on family, and they may be a great stakeholder to talk to. I don't know if this is really a dislike. Well, Joaquin and others mentioned music. And, when I go down to downtown Santa Cruz, on certain weekends, it's like every other block, there's another group playing music. And you can figure out which music you like. They're spaced enough so they're not interfering with each other. And a lot of them are just acoustic, they're not amplified. And I think more people would show up on weekends, just generally, if it adds that kind of ambiance. And you can have some classical musicians in one area, and we can offer probably even a little bit of honorariums to some, or license, whatever, we could. But I'd like to see more of that. I think it really changes people's, it just affects them mentally and physically when they hear nice music and while you're eating or just walking around. What the other thing I don't like, I know this might seem a stretch, but our weather here is not very, it doesn't lend itself to a lot of outdoor eating. But I'm thinking maybe if things were set up so there are awnings and potential for low voltage electrical heaters, like you see on the outside decks of Sam's, right? You have those areas and there's heaters in the back. It could be like 40 degrees out. You just sit back there and it actually feels pretty comfortable. It's at your back. But maybe we can make it, and awnings will keep that heat in. So at least for locals, I think, could very easily enjoy it on a nice night and be able to, so everything doesn't shut down at 8:30 during the winter. You might actually have more folks hanging out. Yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. Great.
Councilmember Ruddock.
Yeah, so since we're talking about the entire streetscape, I don't like the way the various parts of Main Street are sort of broken up, and they're not linked very well. You have the intersection of, Highway 92 and Main Street, and then it seems like, after Miramonte Street, there's an entirely different approach. I'd like to see sort of a common treatment for the whole street. I'd like to see us link, North Main, all the way to the Johnston House. Because eventually, we'll have some development at the Johnston House and more uses, recreational uses, more, culture and things like that, more events. So yeah, I'd like to see design and other approaches that create a link us up the entire way, make the bigger intersections more friendly, common treatments for lighting. I think, that would be really good. And I also think we need to link downtown to other areas on the coast, because the beach is nearby. How do we create better linkages between downtown and the beach? Maybe it's, signs at the beach, or you get a token at the beach to take downtown to, buy something. But But I think we want the coast side to be linked up with each other and not be like siloed, that's where you have to like discover each of these areas, individually. I don't like that we don't have enough art. I like the art that we're getting. I'd like to see more art. There's not enough art, not enough events. I'd like to see more events happening. So that's less about design maybe, although there are design elements. You need space to do that, right? And things that are not just age-friendly, for seniors, but also children and families. I'd like to see more spaces that are, family-friendly, like you mentioned. And then, more culture, more interaction actually between businesses and the public. Like now, I like a lot of the stores we have, and I like the business owners, but you just kind of go in and there's not a point of interaction between the public and there are other places, where the stores have in-store events, and, giveaways, or maybe they have refreshments. So I'd like to see, opportunities for more business interaction with the people, in the stores, more inviting. So that's kind of a merchandising thing. Yeah, I don't like silos. I don't like things that are not linked up. And I don't like that we're not as a city outgoing enough to each other and visitors too. So I'd like more linkages, more common treatments. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree with linking the entire Main Street from Highway 1 to Highway 1 and make it using whatever, I don't think it's just signage. I think there are design ideas that I don't know what they are, but you guys should be able to come up with something, right? That's your job, so that's what I'd love to see. I want no cars on Main Street from the bridge to Correas. That's what I want, because I think unless we get rid of the cars and put the parking off of Main Street, we're not going to have the pedestrian-friendly, dog-friendly, age-friendly city that we'd all like to see. I think it would do wonders for all of our businesses. I think it's difficult if you're on one side of Main Street to decide that you want to cross Main Street because you see something in a shop window across the street because of the traffic. First of all, you may not even see it because of the parked cars, but because of the traffic, you can't get there. So people that decide they want to see Half Moon Bay have to go up one side and down the other. Well, that's time constrained, and it's whether they're going to eat lunch at one end or the other. There are a lot of things that interfere with that kind of a pedestrian travel. So I'd like to see no cars on Main Street. I would like us to work with the Coastal Commission to figure out how we can clean up Pillarcitos Creek and make Main Street Bridge someplace where people can lean over and look at the creek and not see trash and not see willows taking over the entire thing and just underbrush, ruining the riverscape there. So those are my main thoughts. Okay. Vice Mayor Jimenez.
Thank you. It's a long list. Let's start with the stop sign, the intersection of Poplar and Main Street. I don't like that intersection. It's very difficult, especially in the mornings for school and after school for secret students. This people trying to go in or out of the senior housing have a hard time, and that creates a lot of traffic. and that's been happening. So, changing that will make a big difference. Staying in the same area, I don't like how the building looks. It's completely different, the architecture of Half Moon Bay. I think we can do, maybe change the architecture of the senior housing, either with art or trees or something that will make it, part of Half Moon Bay. Right across the street, we have, one of the oldest houses in Half Moon Bay, the property. So something that relates to our community, changing the architecture of the front of the building to look more like, like a downtown building, like a heritage downtown. I don't like there's not enough benches, as you move south on Main Street. We have a lot of benches on the first 4 blocks from Pilarcitos Creek to Correa Street. But if you go south of Correas, there's not a lot of benches for people to sit down. There has to be a connection. I don't like that there's no connection of downtown Main Street, those 4 blocks, to one of the restaurants that it's South Main, Pasta Moon. And I don't like that we don't make use of a beautiful plaza, right across the street. That's an old traditional, kiosk that we have that can actually be used for more things than what it's being used for. I know we have residents, that there's houses and apartments right next to it, but we have to be able to make better use of that location. It's a beautiful site. The benching, the bricks, the floor, everything. And I don't like it that we don't use it. We need more, maybe music, art, something, that attracts, especially when we have a restaurant that is well visited every day of the week, right across the street. The lighting, I don't like the lighting on, again, south of Correas. I walk Main Street maybe 4 times a day, day in the evening. So I see the lighting, how, the lighting changes from Pilarcitos Creek, to all the way to Correas. But after Correas, the lighting pretty much disappears. If you keep on going further south, there's less lighting. And again, if we're gonna be going, make Johnson Street more visible, and the south, entrance to Half Moon Bay more visible for pedestrians or bicyclists, to actually go, south, we have to be able to change that. And I see a lot of people in the evenings, walking, form of exercise for the community, whatever. So I don't like that a lot of the shops and restaurants, don't stay open for long. So be able to have, places open a little bit longer. For, a lot of people work late or they come into Half Moon Bay late. They would like to go eat something downtown and then maybe get a refreshment or maybe get some ice cream or something. And I don't like that we're not making use of what we have in Half Moon Bay. And some of it is, for communities. I think that's what I want to say. Thank you.
Councilmember Rarbach.
I've heard a lot of more good ideas from the Debbies and Joaquin. I agree that Main Street should have a more integrated feel. North of 92 is completely different from south of 92, and there's no reason for that. If we really are going to have a welcoming downtown, I think the whole of Main Street, including the southern part that has a lot more residential, should have an integrated feel. Lighting, signage. This has been brought up many times, but the lack of a good sign on 92 to to direct people to Main Street is crazy. I mean, it's just crazy. People don't even know that there's a Main Street. They just come to the beach. So that's something that we really could correct, and it's not a big deal to correct, but it should be done soon. What else would I like to change? I think that it's certainly worth exploring excluding cars from the 4 blocks of Main Street. One other possibility is what the San Luis Obispo design team had suggested, which was make it one-way. It gets a little complicated because then you have the issue of how do you get across the creek? Do you need another bridge? And that's very problematic. But it's certainly worth exploring. That would make it more pedestrian-friendly to have it one way. I wouldn't be averse to finding out if we could, in fact, exclude cars from that central heritage Main Street. We need wider sidewalks, as people have pointed out, and if you have fewer cars, wider sidewalks works well. Those are some of my ideas.
Wonderful, thank you. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I would just like to throw in the idea of taking a look at Kelly Avenue, too. Since it is a main thoroughfare linking downtown to the beach, and it's often the way that some people come off of Highway 1 to go downtown, I think we might want to, integrate that into our design.
Yeah, great point. It is definitely a main way into the city, and I think it's a really important one to think about. I love the passion you have and the knowledge that you all have in your community. It's really coming out through a lot of these great comments. And I want to just honor that we have about 8 minutes left, and I want to, I think you've uncovered some of this as well, but the last question is, what is missing that you would like to see created? And this can be everything from, I think we've talked about it a little bit, a place that all ages could go to, youth, people who live in the community that are aging in place and want to be able to walk downtown, some of that sort of maybe feeling of a downtown that you want to see created. Anything you want to add there that you haven't covered at this time?
Well, in terms of attracting maybe some Gen Zers, younger folks, and stick around, I would call this phrase Instagrammable murals. Now that's different, from mural that's high up on the wall, you know what I mean? Or people height, but there's just some great scene that people like to participate in. And that is just a huge thing that keeps people around, Kids run to it. I mean, adults too. But they can be very creative. They can even be interchangeable depending if they're put on, wooden frames. And we just have so many talented artists in this area. It's unbelievable as a resource. And for them to see their art up there and people getting attracted, it makes it fun. It gives people ideas. And the other thing, it's come up in certain ways, but I think, Samtrans is really looking to partner with us. And we don't really have a well-planned strategic relationship yet. But I've heard a lot of ideas like, connection to the beaches. So all I'm suggesting is whatever we're planning, see them as a important stakeholder and keep them in mind so they're keeping our future ideas on their radar screen. And we'll probably have more electric shuttles, right? So you want to have, the fumes from engines, and we can really make sure, which also will reduce the number of cars. And so San Rafael, right, downtown has a lot of one-way streets, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, so people get used to it, like, oh, every odd street's this way, every even, so if we make some major changes, I think that could work as well.
When we had our jazz festival in May, I was sitting with a few other people at McDuter Park listening to the music on the corner, and I just happened to be at a table with a gentleman who was about maybe 32 years old. He's originally from Sofia, Bulgaria, had lived in New York and Toronto and I think Philadelphia, now lives in San Jose. So I got to talk, and I said, well, what are you doing out here? You know, and he said, well, I love jazz, but he said, you know, I really love Half Moon Bay. But I tell you, there's a lot more that Half Moon Bay could do, and I think you need to talk to this guy. His name is Toma. But he said, so think about, you know, who has money, you know, in the peninsula, you know, for day trips. You know, it's like young 30-somethings, you know, who work in the tech industry, and what they like, and, you know, what I like, and of course, he has that kind of European, you know, approach, is engagement. You know, they like music, they like art, they want to dance, they want to go into businesses. He's the one who brought up the issue of having businesses engage more with their customers. You know, maybe you have a cooking class, you know, free samples, you know, some activity in the business. They like to interact. And how can you, you know, encourage that? And he actually told me, I didn't really think about the streetscape planning, but I said to him, we need to have you out here and, you know, talk to the Chamber of Commerce. But he had a lot of very specific ideas. So I think the point of it was energy and vitality that addresses a certain age group who is a lot of our visitors, both to the beach and downtown. So energy, vitality is something we need more of, I think.
Yeah, I think that when I talk about getting the cars off the street, I'm talking about it not just in abstract. If we want areas where our children can play, where the dogs can congregate, where the elderly can walk easily, where our merchants can engage with people in the street, we can't have that and still have cars. One-way traffic or not, we can't do it with cars. And I think the only difficulty I see with that is I don't want to turn Main Street into a mall. That's not the idea. I want to encourage more of what we've already got here. And then the other comment that I had to make was about music. And we are a small enough town that the music that comes from San Benito House is not necessarily music that I like. And I hear it exclusively because they're so loud. So I'd like to do something about trying to figure out how we can allow people who like that kind of music to hear it, and those of us that like jazz, for instance, to hear jazz at Harpo's, you know. So that's all.
Thank you.
Sorry. Parklets, you know, we have one right up Pilatos Creek, Fattoria, and there's a wine place. I think we need more of those, but we need to be, you know, tastefully done. I have visited other cities in the peninsula that have parklets, and they actually use plastic, you know, as walls or roof, and I don't like to see that. You know, I want to make sure that we avoid, you know, making more natural. Again, back to our historic, you know, downtown or heritage. So that's, you know, that's something I would like to see more. We have really good restaurants or coffee shops, you know, places to engage. For example, you know, Harpo's place, you know, they do jazz on Fridays, right? So how can we engage that with a parklet to have that available and to invite more community members or more visitors to our community to come by and enjoy places like that? I know some of the wine places, they also offer, you know, they could offer that more on the weekends. The music, you know, and different music to be available for everybody. So I think we can adding the parklets and maybe less vehicles parked, you know, downtown and be something, you know, I would like to say. Tastefully done.
Great.
Councilmember Rarbach.
I don't know if it fits your scope, but I think free community Wi-Fi along Main Street would be a very good addition to our tourist environment. We've talked about it. Maybe it's time to actually do it.
Well, great. Thank you guys so much. Again, I just am really struck by the passion and the pride you have in your town. And I'm not going to do, no way am I going to be able to summarize this and do it justice, but I think the themes are what we hear. You know, I showed you one example where, you know, one of the projects where we thought about Wi-Fi, we thought about ways to include music. So all the lighting fixtures have these adaptabilities. So we'll be very smart about some of the material choices and working with the community to find the right ideas there. And I think I'm hearing a lot about a cohesive Main Street, flexible space, flexible use, and you know, certainly wanting it to be an engaging space for people to be in. So you guys are the first of this activity, so I really appreciate all the good ideas you have here, and we'll be doing this again next week with different groups and commissions and the public. So I think that's it. I know we're right at time, or a little bit over.
Cindy, thank you
Thank you.
very much. That was a wonderful presentation.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'm going to suggest a 5-minute break before we start our 7 o'clock regular meeting. Please come back and be here by 7:05. Thank you.